Beowulf, son of Ecgtheow, spoke. Many a skirmish I survived when I was young, and many times of war. I remember them well. At 7 I was fostered out by my father, left in charge of my people's lord. King Hrethel kept me and took care of me, was open-handed, behaved like a kinsman. Typo. While I was his ward, he treated me no worse as a wean about the place than one of his own boys, Herebeald and Hethson, or my own Higelac. For the eldest, Herebeald, an unexpected deathbed was laid out, through a brother's doing, when Hethson bent his horn-tipped bow and loosed the arrow that destroyed his life. Holy crap. Okay, my bad. I told y'all a couple of days ago that Hrothgar's brothers, one was killed by an accident. My bad. It was one of Beowulf's cousins, or one of his uncles was accidentally killed by another one of his uncles. When Hansen went, he shot wide and buried a shaft in the flesh and blood of his own brother. Wow. Who did that? Herebeald? No, Haethcyn. Haethcyn killed Herebeald with a bow and arrow. That offense was beyond redress, a wrong footing of the heart's affections. For who could avenge the prince's life or pay his death price? Again, this is our third occurrence of fratricide. One of Beowulf's uncles kills another one of his uncles. It's like, okay, if your son kills your other son, how do you punish that? You can't kill him because then you'll have even less sons. So it's a tough puzzle to figure out. It was like the misery felt by an old man who has lived to see his son's body swing on the gallows. He begins to keen and weep for his boy, watching the raven gloat where he hangs. He can be of no help. The wisdom of age is worthless to him. Morning after morning he wakes to remember that his child is gone. He has no interest in living or until another heir is born in the hall, now that his firstborn has entered death's dominion forever. He gazes sorrowfully at his son's dwelling, the banquet hall bereft of all delight. The wind-swept hearthstone, the horsemen are sleeping, the warriors underground. What was is no more. No tunes from the harp, no cheer raised in the yard. Alone with his longing, he lies down on his bed and sings a lament. Everything seems too large, the steadings and the fields. Such was the feeling of loss endured by the Lord of the Geats. After Herebeald's death, he was hopelessly placed to set to rights the wrong committed, could not punish the killer in accordance of the law of the blood feud, although he felt no love for him. Heartsore, wearied, he turned away from life's joys, chose God's light, and departed, leaving buildings and lands to his sons as a man of substance will. So who is Beowulf talking about here? He's talking about his grandfather, the father of Higelac. Like when his one son killed his first son, there was nothing he could do about it, so he went into a deep depression and just gave it all away. Then, over the wide seas, Swedes and Geats battled and feuded and fought without quarter. Hostilities broke out when Hrethel died. Ongentheow's sons were unrelenting, refusing to make peace, campaigning violently from coast to coast, constantly setting up terrible ambushes around Frenzfriel. My own kith and kin avenged these evil events, as everybody knows, but the price was high. One of them paid with his life. Haethcyn, lord of the Geats, met his fate there and fell in battle. Then, as I have heard, Higelac's sword was raised in the morning against Ongentheow, his brother's killer. Then Eofor cleft the old Swede's helmet, halved it open. He fell, death pale, his feud calloused hand could not stave off the fatal stroke. So, Higelac Higelac's brother died in battle against Ongentheow, but was avenged. The treasures that Higelac lavished on me I paid for as I fought, as fortune allowed me, with my glittering sword. He gave me land and the security land brings, so he had no call to go looking for some lesser champion, some mercenary among the Grithus, or the Speardanes, or the men of Sweden. I marched ahead of him, always there at the front of the line, and I shall fight like that for as long as I live, as long as this sword shall last, which has stood me in good stead. Late and soon, ever since I killed Dayraven, the Frank, in front of the two armies, he brought back no looted breastplate to the Frisian king, but fell in battle. Their standard-bearer, high-born and brave, no sword blade sent him to his death. My bare hands stilled his heartbeats and wrecked the bone house. Now blade and hand, sword and sword stroke will essay the horde. So this is Beowulf bragging on himself, how good he was in battle. He was able to kill Dayraven the Frank with his bare hands just by crushing his chest. Way to go, Beowulf, you stud. All right, Beowulf spoke, made a formal boast for the last time. I risked my life often when I was young. Now I am old. But as king of this people, I shall pursue this fight for the glory of winning. If the evil one will only abandon his earth fort and face me in the open. Then he addressed each dear companion one final time, those fighters in their helmets, resolute and high-born. I would rather not use a weapon if I knew another way to grapple with the dragon and make good my boast, as I did against Grendel in days gone by. But I shall be meeting molten venom in the fire he breathes. So I go forth in mail shirt and shield. I won't shift a foot. When I meet the cave guard, what occurs on the wall between the two of us will turn out as fate. Overseer of men decides. I am resolved. I scorn further words against the sky-born foe. Men-at-arms, remain here on the barrow, safe in your armor, to see which one of us is better in the end at bearing wounds in a deadly fray. This fight is not yours, nor is it up to any man except me to measure his strength against the monster or to prove his worth. I shall win the gold by my courage, or else mortal combat, doom of battle, will bear your lord away. Then he drew himself up beside his shield. The fabled warrior in his war shirt and helmet trusted in his own strength entirely and went under the crag. No coward path, hard by the rock face, that hale veteran, a good man who had gone repeatedly into combat and danger and come through, saw a stone arch and a gushing stream that burst from the barrow, blazing and wafting a deadly heat. It would be hard to survive unscathed near the horde, to hold firm against the dragon in those flaming depths. Then he gave a shout, "Ah!" The Lord of the Geats unburdened his breast and broke in a storm of anger. Under gray stone his voice challenged and rebounded clearly. Heat was ignited. The horde guard recognized a human voice. The time was over for peace and parleying. Pouring forth in a hot battle fume, the breath of the monster burst from the rock. There was a rumble underground. Down there in the barrow, Beowulf the warrior lifted his shield. The outlandish thing writhed and convulsed and viciously turned on the king, whose keen-edged sword and heirloom inherited by ancient right was already in his hand. Roused to a fury, each antagonist struck terror in the other. Unyielding, the lord of his people loomed by his tall shield, sure of his ground, while the serpent looped and unleashed itself. Swaddled in flames, it came gliding and flexing and racing toward its fate. Yet his shield defended the renowned leader's life and limb for a short time than he meant it to. That final day was the first time when Beowulf fought and fate denied him glory in battle. So the king of the Geats raised his hand and struck hard at the enameled scales, but hardly cut through. The blade flashed and slashed, yet the blow was far less powerful than the hard-pressed king had need of at that moment. The horde keeper went into spasm and spouted deadly flames. When he felt the stroke, battle fire billowed and spewed. Beowulf was foiled of a glorious victory. The glittering sword, infallible before that day, failed when he unsheathed it, as it never should have. For the son of Ectheo, it was no easy thing to have to give ground like that and go unwillingly to inhabit another home in a place beyond. So every man must yield the leasehold of his days. Before long, the fierce contenders clashed again. The horde guard took heart, inhaled and swelled up, and got a new wind. He who had once ruled was furled in fire and had to face the worst. No help or backing was to be had then from his high-born comrades. That hand-picked troop broke ranks and ran for their lives to the safety of the wood. But within one heart sorrow welled up, and a man of worth, the claims of kinship cannot be denied. Okay, so Beowulf is fighting the dragon by himself in the dragon's lair, and he's not doing too good. His sword is ineffective. The dragon is burning him with his fire. Like Beowulf knows he's going to lose. And then the men that he brought, the 11, most of them run away scared. But one has chosen not to run away. His name was Wiglaf, a son of Weohstan's, a well-regarded Scylfing warrior related to Alfheir. When he saw his lord tormented by the heat of this scalding helmet, he remembered the bountiful gifts he bestowed on him, how well he lived among the Waymundings, the freehold he inherited from his father before him. He could not hold back. One hand brandished the yellow-timbered shield, the other drew his sword, an ancient blade that was said to have belonged to Eanmund, the son of Othera, the one Weohstan had slain when he was in exile without friends. Oh, that's back to when Heardred got killed. Remember, he let those exiles into his country, and the Swedes came and attacked him. Well, Wiglaf is a descendant of those guys. All right, the one Weohstan had slain when he was in exile without friends. He carried the arms to the victim's kinfolk, the burnished helmet, the webbed chainmail, and that relic of the giants. But Onela returned the weapons, returned the weapons to him, rewarded Weohstan with Eamund's war gear. He ignored the blood feud, the fact that Eamund was his brother's son. Weohstan kept that war gear for a lifetime, the sword and the mail shirt until it was the son's turn, to follow his father and perform his part. Among the Weathergeats he bequeathed to Wiglaf innumerable weapons, and now the youth was to enter the line of battle with his lord, his first time to be tested as a fighter. His spirit did not break, and the ancestral blade would keep its edge, as the dragon discovered as soon as they came together in combat. So Wiglaf is going to be brave enough to go and help his king Beowulf fight the dragon. Sad at heart, addressing his companions, Wiglaf spoke wise and fluent words. I remember that time when the mead was flowing, how we pledged loyalty to our lord in the hall, promised our ring giver he would be worth our price. Make good the gift of the war gear, those swords and helmets, as and when his need required it. He picked us out from the army deliberately, honored us and judged us, fit for his action, made me these lavish gifts, and all because he considered us the best of his arms-bearing thanes. And now, although he wanted this challenge to be the one he'd face by himself alone, the shepherd of our land, a man unequaled in the quest for glory, and a name for daring, now the day has come when this Lord we serve needs sound men to give him the support. Let us go to him, help our leader through the hot flame and dread of the fire. As God is my witness, I would rather my body were robbed in the same burning blaze as my gold giver's body than go back home bearing arms. That is unthinkable, unless we have first slain the foe and defended the life of the prince of the Weathergeats. I well know that things he has done for us deserve better. Should he alone be left exposed to fall in battle, we must bond together, shield and helmet, mail, shirt, and sword. Then he wotted the dangerous reek and went under arms to his lord, saying only, Go on, dear Beowulf, do everything you said you would do when you were still young, and vowed you would never let your name and fame be dimmed while you lived. Your deeds are famous, so stay resolute, my lord. Defend your life now with the whole of your strength. I shall stand by you. After those words, a wildness rose in the dragon again and drove it to attack, heaving up fire, hunting for enemies, the humans it loathed. Flames lapped the shield, charred it to the boss, and the body armor on the young warrior was useless to him. But Wiglaf did well under the wide rim. Beowulf shared with him once his own had shattered in sparks and ashes. Inspired again by the thought of glory, the war king threw his whole strength behind a sword stroke and connected with the skull. And Nagling snapped. That's the name of the sword, Nagling. Beowulf's ancient iron-gray sword let him down in the fight. It was never his fortune to be helped in combat by the cutting edge of weapons made of iron. When he yielded a sword, no matter how blooded and hard-edged the blade, his hand was too strong. The stroke he dealt, as I have heard, would ruin it. He could reap no advantage. Boy, Beowulf does not have good luck with swords. All right. Then the bane of that people, the fire-breathing dragon, was mad to attack for a third time. When a chance came, he caught the hero in a rush of flame and clamped sharp fangs into his neck. Beowulf's body ran wet with his life blood. It came welling out. Next thing they say, the noble son of Weohstan, that's Wiglaf, saw the king in danger at his side and displayed his inborn bravery and strength. He left the head alone, but his fighting hand was burned when he came to his kinsman's aid. He lunged at the enemy lower down, so that his decorated sword sank into its belly, and the flames grew weaker. Once again the king gathered his strength and drew a stabbing knife he carried on his belt. Sharpened for battle, he struck it deep into the dragon's flank. Beowulf dealt it a deadly wound. They had killed the enemy. Courage quelled his life. That pair of kinsmen, partners in nobility, had destroyed the foe. So every man should act, be at hand when needed. But now for the king, this would be the last of his many labors and triumphs in the world.